It's official, Chelsea have drawn PSG in the next round of the Champions League, and PSG undoubtedly wanting to get some revenge for the Club World Cup drubbing, but are Chelsea in good enough shape to hold out for the next round? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC, and today we're talking about Chelsea PSG. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is actually the draw that I wanted. I am buzzing for a couple of reasons, right? The first one, the selfish one. One of the first collabs that I ever did was with a guy called Quentin. He's got a channel called Red and Blue. He does an English-speaking PSG channel. Guy's an absolute legend. And it feels like fate has drawn us back together for this clash. The other reason, in all honesty, I didn't want Newcastle because of the St. James's Park hoodoo, right? Like, you know, we're going to have to play one of those matches at St. James's Park, and at the end of the day, it's just always a struggle, isn't it? I feel like PSG actually gives us a bit more even footing, and also just from like a football fan perspective, like we've played Newcastle already this season, do you know what I mean? And, you know, it's just one of those, isn't it? Like, I like playing these big teams when you get to do stuff like the Champions League. So for me, this has panned out perfectly. But guys, before we get into the video, if you are enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to take a little look at PSG's Champions League campaign so far. We're going to take a look at Chelsea's Champions League campaign so far. But before that, we are going to get into their league positions, because there's just get a little zoom out and have a little look at how PSG are doing this season compared to how Chelsea are doing. So this is the top 5 spots in Liga at the moment, and PSG, as you would imagine, are on top. 54 points from 23 games, 17 wins, 3 losses, 3 draws. So not amazing season from PSG so far. Obviously, you know, PSG are almost every single season the strongest team in their league. But even by their own lofty standards, they're not performing quite as well as they usually do. 52 goals for. What is quite impressive, only 19 goals against in 23 games so far. And you can see in the top 5, that is 100% definitely the best return there, and a goal difference of plus 33. Do you know what I mean? So they are obviously playing well. The crazy thing about this is Lens actually in second, only 2 points behind PSG. So there is an unusual title race happening in France at the moment, and that in itself tells you PSG are not on their best form at the moment. 3 draws and 3 losses from 23 games is not amazing form for them, but you know, they are still PSG. They still have a great manager. They've got a great squad full of young players, but also some really good experienced players in there as well. You know, what I wouldn't give for a centre back like Marquinhos at the moment, do you know what I mean, at Chelsea. Maybe when he gets to the end of his contract, we'll pick him up like we did Thiago Silva, and we'll get to experience that all over again. But yeah, so that's, you know, PSG, and obviously now we'll take a look at where Chelsea are in the Premier League. Our season decidedly not as strong. Caveat again, obviously, the Premier League is much more difficult than Ligue 1, but Chelsea currently sit in 5th place after 27 games. We're playing Arsenal, obviously, on Sunday in the Premier League. We have 45 points from those 27 games as well, which is, you know, essentially PSG have managed to accrue more points in less games. There are also only 18 teams in Ligue 1 now. So, you know, that not that makes a difference for where we are, but, you know, there is just a little difference there. The main thing is goals against for us is 31, right? We've conceded 31 goals in the Premier League so far, and PSG have only conceded 19. So their defence, by the looks of things, is a little bit surer than ours. And what was really interesting, I dived into Quentin from Red and Blue. I dived into his, he was doing a live stream for the Champions League draw. And one of the things that he said that I found interesting was Strasbourg, Liam Rosenior's Strasbourg have always given them a rough time this season. So I think they've won their game so far, but over the last couple of seasons, Liam Rosenior's squad has managed to give them some trouble. So that in itself is promising, right? Because what Liam Rosenior has now is ultimately a better squad, top to bottom for the most part. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't mind having a Joaquin Panicelli in the squad. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, but at the same time, João Pedro's absolutely massively on form. Cole Palmer is now starting to get back to his best, and those are the two that essentially decimated PSG in the Club World Cup final. So that is really interesting. Now, what we're going to move on to is we're going to take a look at the Champions League campaigns and kind of see how they measure up so far. Obviously, PSG have just had to play Monaco twice because they had to go through the playoff stage, do you know what I mean? Because we're in the new format of the Champions League now. But PSG, it is unusual because they have got some really, really, really good results, but obviously our results got us into 6th, whereas they finished in 11th in the table. So PSG 4-0 against Atalanta. We obviously really struggled against Atalanta. Barcelona, they beat in match day 2. Obviously we beat them as well, so that's kind of even Stevens there. 7-2 against Bayer Leverkusen. Like, they are scoring goals, man. Do you know what I mean? They lost against Bayern Munich. We also lost against Bayern Munich. They beat Tottenham 5-3, but, everyone beats Tottenham, don't they? So that's, to be expected. 0-0 draw against Athletic Bilbao, which would have been a difficult one for them. A loss against Sporting Lisbon, that would have been a really, really bad result for them at the time. 1-1 against Newcastle, and that's another reason that you can see it just there. Do you know what I mean? They didn't manage to get the win over Newcastle, and that's another reason I didn't really want to come up against Newcastle, and I'd rather come up against PSG. And then obviously in the playoffs, they've just beaten Monaco, barely, 5-4 aggregate. Do you know what I mean? So they started quite strong. Do you know what I mean? Big results against Atalanta, big result against Leverkusen, big result against Tottenham. But as the season has gone on, they've obviously been struggling a little bit more. So we'll compare that now. By the way, one thing I just quickly want to say, love the graphics and the PSG website, which is where I got these from. And when you compare it to the Chelsea one, not quite as pretty, is it? Not quite as pretty. So our Champions League campaign so far, obviously, we lost in the opening day to Bayern Munich 3-1. We beat Benfica 1-0. Obviously demolished Ajax with a second-string team 5-1. That draw against Karabag, that was not fun. Obviously, we absolutely battered Barcelona in our own backyard 3-0. Lost against Atalanta, which is, that was an atrocious result. And we only just scraped past through Paphos 1-0. And then obviously more recently, Liam Rosenior's first game in charge in the Champions League, we came out 3-2 winners against Napoli. So we're not scoring quite as many goals as those as they are, but we managed to eke out results a little bit more often than PSG did. So I do think that counts for something. But yeah, it's just one of those, isn't it, man? It's just one of those, like, PSG. It's never, I was listening to Conton on his stream and he was saying that he was like, Chelsea are the favourites going into this. And I'm like, I don't really feel like that, man. I feel like both teams are having a difficult season. And it's weird, isn't it? Because PSG are, top of their league and competing or whatever. But and comparatively, we are only just looking to scrape a Champions League spot if we're lucky. But all of the context and the nuance surrounding it is both teams haven't had an amazing season. The other thing that's interesting as well is, like, it means more this time. Like, I know the Club World Cup was a massive deal, and easily as a content creator, it's the best night I've had, obviously, getting on camera and screaming into my microphone about how happy I was that we won, because I really, really thought we were just going to get battered in that game. But what this game means, even though it's not a final, do you know what I mean? This game means more than the Club World Cup did, because there is a lot more prestige. It is a huge competition. The Champions League music will play, and all of a sudden, anything that's gone on throughout the season and any past results and stuff don't really matter. So although I've built it as like a rematch in my thumbnail, it is a rematch, but it's not really a rematch because what that was something completely different. It was right at the back end of the season. We were really lucky to be able to bring in João Pedro pretty much straight away into the squad, which obviously was a massive part of us winning that competition. And it's not the same teams, do you know what I mean? Like, big changes for PSG are, for the instant one that I think of is obviously Donnarumma is now a Man City player. We've had a lot of changes in the squad. We don't have Nicholas Jackson anymore. We don't have Madueke anymore. We've been really struggling with the likes of Garnacho. We've changed our defence. Like, literally, we've had like 10 different centre-back pairings throughout the season. We've really been struggling for consistency. They've got amazing young players. Bradley Barcola, Desiré Doué, Kvaratskhelia, absolutely brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Ousmane Dembele, I'm not sure what's happening with him at the moment, because there were actually some Chelsea links a little while ago, weren't they? But it's just one of those, man. It is impossible to look at this game for me in any other way than these two ties are just really individual. I don't think PSG are the favourites. I don't think Chelsea are the favourites. I thought PSG were the favourites going into the Club World Cup game because they had a much harder run than we did to get to that final. They'd won the Champions League. They'd absolutely smashed the last season, and we were a bit of a broken team. Do you know what I mean? And we were only in that competition because we won the Champions League in the previous 4 years. So we weren't out in that competition on current merit. So, these games are always surprising, man. But like I say, for me, this is the one that I wanted. Newcastle, Like I say, a couple of reasons. A little bit more boring to play Newcastle again. Do you know what I mean? And, it's obviously Champions League nights are always different or whatever. But I'd much rather come up against like a PSG. And this is a good time to come up against PSG as well, because they are strong in the league and stuff, but they've struggled in the Champions League this season. Listening to, like I say, my friend talk about PSG, it sounds like they've had a reasonably tumultuous season. Probably not quite as drama-filled as ours. At the end of the day, they've still got the same core of players. They've still got the same manager. So it is definitely not going to be easy. But I'm excited for it, guys, and I want to know how you think it's going to go. I believe that we can and will come out on top. I genuinely believe that. But it is going to, it depends on what the fixtures are around it and stuff. And obviously we've had loads of trouble with injury in that this season as well. So it's not going to be, like I say, a cakewalk, and it's not going to be, we're just going to get demolished. I expect us to go into both of these games and, be very, very competitive. And at the end of the day, it's like, the last time we won the Champions League, we changed our manager mid-season. The last 2 times, the only 2 times we've ever won the Champions League, we changed our manager mid-season. Obviously, Robert Di Matteo took us to the Champions League in 2012, and more recently, we actually appointed Thomas Tuchel after sacking Frank Lampard as well, didn't we? And you know what? I think our squad is better now than it was when we won the Champions League last time. We won the Champions League despite our squad. I think it was much more down to Thomas Tuchel's tactical acumen and brilliance, getting the best out of Reece James and Ben Chilwell. But at the same time, we also had some stalwarts in defence, which is really, really important. The likes of Thiago Silva, Antonio Rudiger, those are going to be massive changes. But also in attack, we had Kai Havertz, who, say whatever you want about Kai Havertz at Arsenal. I think he's a waste man player. I just don't rate him at all. But he was awful for Chelsea. And yes, he scored that goal in the Champions League final, and I'm not taking that away from him. But in general, you don't rely on, or we weren't relying on Kai Havertz to get us through games. Timo Werner, absolutely awful. Do you know what I mean? But, we had a few really good quality players, like I say, Reece James and Ben Chilwell, and our defence was really good, that kind of pushed us through that Champions League. So you never know, man. Like I say, I'm looking at Cole Palmer, I'm looking at João Pedro, I'm looking at Estevao, I'm looking at Neto, Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Cucurella, Reece James, even Robert Sanchez. I was watching George Benson did a collab with Connor Holden, really excellent tactical stuff. If you really, really like to dig into the tactical stuff, 100% check out Connor Holden. And they were talking about potential player of the season being Rob Sanchez. And I was like, do you know what? That's a really, really fair shout, actually. Rob Sanchez has probably been our most consistent player of the season so far. He's had a couple of mistakes, but ultimately he's saved us a lot more than he's made it difficult for us. So, yeah, look. PSG in the Champions League, I'm actually really happy about it. I will be doing a match preview for it with my friend Conti. It's going to be great. I can't wait because I haven't spoken to him since we did the preview for the Club World Cup game, so that's going to be really fun. Conti, if you're watching this, je suis chaud pour le match. Je suis super chaud pour le match. But nice one, guys. I'm going to wrap it up there. Just a short one today. I'm going to be getting I'm going to do a match preview for the Arsenal game to come out tomorrow as well. Haven't done one of those in a while. We're going to bust out a little starting 11 graphic because, like I say, I haven't done that in a while, and I think it's going to be fun. Nice one, guys. Thank you very much for sticking around until the end of the video. If you did, just a short one today, but I'll catch up with you all very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.